guess. Is it
Mm.
ahana?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
So I
Awesome.
have a few questions prepared, and you can just answer them freely. And if you can't answer one, that's also all right.
Yeah.
Are you also all right if I record this interview?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question is, when did you start drawing?
Um, I think I started drawing. It had to be, I don't think I can even remember. I think I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. It was started for sure when I was like a little kid.
Hmm.
Um, I it wasn't really something that was like it didn't really feel like something I like tried to learn or that I picked up. It
Hmm.
was like my mom was also like a visual. I mean, she wasn't like a crazy visual artist who had notoriety or anything, but that was like her strong suit when she was at a young age. But like, I didn't even know any of that
Hmm.
when I was really young. Like, I just did it. Just I was just connected to it and just pulled to it. But I can't even remember when like the first time I decided to do that. I just was just always drawing, no matter what like it was. I just always like felt like that was my my thing, despite you know influences or people around me or my environment. Like I always wanted to do that for some reason. So as long as I can remember is basically my answer.
And then, how old were you when you started taking your music and your art seriously?
Um, well, I think when I was in high school is when I sort of had this like uh I don't know, I guess this like realization through, I mean the age and my local music scene at the time like kind of introduced this desire for creating music that I'd never had before
Hmm.
growing up. And I mean, so before that, like I was always like, well, I want to do something like within visual art, whatever that was. I didn't know if I wanted to be an animator or like an illustrator, whatever. I remember like just being really like when I was really young, my mom had gotten me the Gorillaz Demon Day CD, and I
Hmm.
remember seeing the cover of like these illustrated characters and being like, that's so cool. Like wow, like I want to do that sort of in a way. I don't know how, like, you can't really just become like an artist who makes album covers, but I knew that, like, as I started to get more and more connected to my own taste of music and see music as a vessel for expression as well. And eventually getting to the place where I was like, okay, I could also, make music. Like, I don't have to just make art. It was sort of like this epiphany of like, okay, well, like I absolutely, no matter what I do with music, like I want to meld like both worlds. Like I remember just even sometimes when like I was in high school and I would simply just like jam with a friend, I would make all these like visual ideas in my head of like, okay, if we ever made a band together, like this is what the album would look like. And I would like come up with ideas, like draw ideas for like all the, I don't know, like I would just be really like excited or just like keen to connect um, visual drawing and making visual art with music. That was kind of like my, I don't know, condition for doing that
Hmm.
in a way. Because I was like, I can finally, I guess, like make a soundtrack, I guess, to what I'm trying to express visually, you know?
Yeah.
And, when that's all within your control, it just feels like with this one cohesive thing, the context of both things like fill in each other. Um, so I guess it was around high school. I mean, Julie was definitely it was sort of like my hopes and desires for that way of thinking was kind of manifested
Hmm.
through that. From the beginning of starting Julie before he was even called Julie, before he was in anything, I always knew like, okay, this is awesome. I've always wanted to sort of make a band or music project have visuals that I can make visuals along with. So that before was anything and any ethos was in it, that was always
Hmm.
kind of like my goal. So it was around like high school, I guess, when Julie started, like late high school. So yeah.
What made you choose to focus on drums?
Um, I guess at the time, again, in the town that I grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
um, musicians and musicians with like the same sort of taste as like me and my friends, just that at the time like wasn't really common. Like the town I grew up in, there wasn't it wasn't really like a lot of, I don't know, it was just like a lot of people who were not interested in music or art or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or at least like any that I shared any like common place with. So I knew that, but in general, Orange County, I mean, of course, there's like musicians and there's like local bands all across Orange County, but you know, there wasn't that many drummers, and if there were, they were already in like five or six other bands, and they were of course really good because they took like jazz band since they were like
Mm-hmm.
2 years old. But I was like, okay, I wanted to play bass, or at least I thought. And then I was like, I'm gonna learn just basics of drums, just have an excuse to like play music with people. Because I just wanted to play music. Like I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play music with people, and like it was so hard to find a drummer. So I was like, okay, I'll just pick up drums just simply for the act of do it. But I do not care about this thing. And then eventually with like, like that tactic kind of worked with Keon and stuff like that because he
Mm-hmm.
was playing music with a mutual friend, and I was like, I'll play drums. But eventually, like I think through Julie and through that becoming more serious. I mean, even in like the infant stages of Julie, just like kind
Mm-hmm.
of us collectively growing our taste or growing our inspiration or finding things that are like huge like Sonic Youth was a huge catalyst, like not just like sound and vibes wise, but like they were really heavily like into the arts and into the
Mm-hmm.
avant-garde, and not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with visual art as a career, that kind of was inspiring because it's like, okay, they sort of have this appreciation for like fine art and avant-garde, and that's built into their music. So that was kind of like a pivotal thing for me, is like, okay, like I'm getting more examples here on how I can like, be connected to both of my facets of things I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of forgot where I was going. So I think kind of I guess through Julie I sort of discovered a passion on how to meld my art with the band, but
Mm-hmm.
also with drums. I mean, I think I along the way found like I was never like into drums at all, and I never liked drummers. I thought drummers was just like a culture I was never attracted to. I just didn't. I wasn't into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like I sort of found percussionists or drummers of like through just growing your taste in high school and just gaining more of a music taste. I found people who I looked up to, or just like I don't know, yeah, just found certain people I'd look up to. Me and Keon and Alex would like share videos and be like, look, this guy's so cool, like blah blah blah. That makes me want to, kind of like I don't know, be inspired to play drums or whatever. And he'd do the same with guitar players or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like we would just find people in these niches, and we'd be inspired by them. So along the way and through finding my own sort of, I don't know, my own appreciation for it, I then started to be like, drums is my instrument. And I gained this sort of appreciation for it in a non orthodox way, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in like a non traditional way. Um, so I think like I because for a while I was really like mad that I chose drums and wanted to be like a guitar player or something. But along the way I was like, okay, I've through people I respect, through people I found who make drums their own thing, I've sort of felt really connected to that instrument of like I want to make my own thing. I want to make drums my own thing and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's been like kind of a journey to realize why I was connected to drums, but I think there was something always in me that was like attracted to that instrument, even if I didn't really know why, or it took me a while to really realize it. But yeah.
So what inspired your drumming style?
um, I think my drumming style was sort of, I mean, at first, I guess, like, I don't know, when I was like listening to like a lot of MBV and stuff, I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to the drummer. call him. I can't pronounce his last name, but he was, I think not really feeling like I belonged to playing drums or felt like just feeling like I didn't belong there. Like I was always kind of inspired by drummers who can really play well, I guess. Like when I would hear them mess up and they're being
Mm-hmm.
presented like in this professional context, like, oh, he's the drummer for this like really renowned band, like he's great. But they would visibly, or you could audibly hear them mess up, and not just for the sake of messing up, but like the sloppiness that sort of alluded to this very raw chemistry with the rest of the band members. Like it didn't matter that it was like completely clean or on time. I was inspired by that because I
Mm-hmm.
was never really good at drums. I was always really sloppy, and I still am really sloppy. But I was sort of attracted to when drummers would, yeah, I guess like I don't know, uh, be kind of just do their own thing. I guess not really follow the mold too much. I mean, of course, there's like more traditional and really tight and great drummers that I like Carla Azar and
Mm-hmm.
Britt Walford from Slint and all that. But and of course, everyone loves Zach Hill, of course. But like I think the Greg Saunier and like Brian Chippendales of the world, I think and like Chris Corsano, who's more so just an avant-garde percussionist than a drummer. But I think like people like that inspired me because they just were kind of weird and they just kind of broke a lot of the rules, but also like still made it really impactful. And I
Yeah.
that's what I kind of connected with is like when I play drums, I don't want to just play drums. Like I don't know, I want to find a way to make it my own, even if it's a little wrong. That's okay because
Mm-hmm.
I can call it my thing, and I'll feel like I'm doing my thing and having my expression. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, like just drummers who kind of find their own way with playing, even if it's a little unconventional. I think is kind of what I look up to, and even when drummers sort of, I think even presentation wise, like I think like everything I sort of try to tap into or pay attention to, like the presentation and how it looks is just as important. Like we carry this to Julie, like all the gear and everything has to look a very particular way. Otherwise, like, you're kind of missing out on this big avenue of, I don't know, just like expression.
Mm-hmm.
Like the drums, there's some drummers that I've seen that, and I look at their drum kit or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird looking, or like, that's kind of cool looking. Like, that's kind of inspiring. And so, like, we do the same. Like me and Keon always talked about like, okay, like the drums would be cool if like everything was like looking like this and like
Mm-hmm.
everything was kind of sized and lengthened to be at a certain silhouette, I guess. And he does the same with his guitars and his amps and stuff like that. And like I make my drums very low and I don't try to get anything too big and like rock and roll looking because that's lame. So yeah, I guess it comes in all things, of course, like how
Yeah.
drummers play I get inspired by, but also like how they look when they're playing. Like that's a huge key detail is like how a musician looks when they're playing. Sometimes it's like sometimes most of the draw, sometimes half of the draw.
Mm-hmm.
So um yeah, just along the way I've just kind of realized all these things and seen all these things that have made me sort of inspired. But yeah.
You also like you kind of explained it before, but how would you say, specifically your like how your music and your illustrations influence each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's um it's interesting because I feel like especially during the early days I would feel really driven um to come up with an idea based off of like certain new demos that we had made.
Mm-hmm.
um like if we made a song that I just really felt like really good about, sometimes just listening to that over and over would like sort of like I don't know, like I when I hear songs I really connect with, like I can see like this whole sort of like visualization in a way. Like I can just like see this. I don't know. I just try to come up with like abstract mental visuals, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to translate that to like, like actual execution. If I really like a song, sometimes I can see what it feels like, and then it becomes easier to just be like, okay, like, well, now I've just been given an idea through just listening to it, and now I can just try to I mean, the trouble always comes with like from what you see in your head to actual like application
Mm-hmm.
through paper or whatever the medium is like to get like your mental image you see in your head out is like the hardest part. No matter what you're
Yeah.
like, at least in my experience, you're always going to lose something in translation of that, and you're always going to kind of deal with like, it's not really coming out the way I see it in my head. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, I can be someone who gets stuck or like step in their own way, and like not really let something flourish too much just because it's not really happening or panning out the way I exactly want it to a T.
Mm-hmm.
So um there is, I don't know, for me, I guess there's this kind of like learned like um letting go or relinquishing of control in a way, and just like trying to let ideas take you somewhere instead of you trying to take the idea somewhere. So I think yeah, so again, like sometimes it'll just kind of come to me,
Mm-hmm.
or lately, I guess, or it's not all the time, but sometimes like a lot of the visuals that being end up used for Julie are sometimes like on accident, I guess. Like I think it's stuff that I'm not really, I don't usually when I sit down and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna draw something for an album or a flyer or whatever. That's when I'm like kind of putting too much, it puts too much pressure,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of kills ideas from coming out because I have this pressure of like, it needs to say this and it needs to do this and it needs to be great. And so that just kind of like just totally blocks off like any natural process of happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
So most art is usually when I'm just kind of doing like free illustrating or free drawing. I'm just doing it just to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and subconsciously, messages that end up being cohesive with the music are still intact just because I'm not thinking about it. I don't need to think about it all the time of like what I'm trying to say. I think naturally, just because of I'm doing it, it'll come through, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, Keon or Alex will be like, "Oh, this is great. This would work for this." And sometimes I'm like, "Really? Like, I don't think so. Like, that looks horrible." But I think, yeah, sometimes you just gotta be like, "Okay, like, you know, if you guys think it's good, we can use it." But I think it's honestly helped in that way to um you have a little bit of detachment, I guess, of
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, like having things, sometimes like we'll use drawings of mine that are unfinished. And they're like, to me, this drawing feels like really great with, this song or this flyer or whatever, like,
Mm-hmm.
the composition or whatever just matches. Um, and yeah, it took a while for me to not be so protective over it and be like, no, it's unfinished. Like, this is not worthy of anything. But there's a big subconscious that plays into your art, even if
Mm-hmm.
like surface level you're have this protection of like, it's not saying what I want to say, it doesn't look the way I want it to look naturally, because if it's coming from you and you have this passion and this vision, it will do its job without you having to think about it. And that's what I've sort of sometimes come to realize. I mean, you do, that's not something to rely on, but that
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes something that can surprise you and can get you out of self doubt, I guess. At least for me, like this is sort of for me, is like, there can be a lot of like thinking about what you're trying to create, and that can sometimes stop you, and sometimes I guess you just have to let the subconscious take over and just to do it and see where it goes and just show it to you, so
Mm-hmm. What are your favorite mediums?
I think my favorite mediums, like just in general, for like everything, or just
Yeah.
for um I mean, like, I think drawing like pencil to paper, I think is just like, I think always my sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like safe for me. It's what I've always done since I was a little
Mm-hmm.
kid, even though it's forgiving than digital. I do draw digital sometimes, but more so lately. I've just been kind of doing it for like post editing or compositional editing
Mm-hmm.
or just coloring or whatever. But for a while I was solely digital just because of how forgiving it was and blah blah blah. But I guess that I've been more aspiring or I've like sort of like flirted with the idea of like painting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with that, it doesn't have to be large scale, but I kind of, if I do paint, I kind of always am like, well, I want to do something large scale because I just want to do that. That kind of does change the way I guess I would approach making art because now you have,
Mm-hmm.
you real estate, like you kind of need to like, you know, paint differently than if you're drawing pencil and paper. Like there's
Yeah.
broader strokes and larger, so it's like something to learn. So I guess that's something that I haven't really tapped into yet, but I have been attracted to that idea. I think paintings are my favorite things to like, obviously, yeah, but I think most things I've been moved by have been like very raw looking,
Mm-hmm.
abstract expression paintings. But um, I mean, like sometimes I wish I was a photographer because I think that really talented photographers can just really, there's something about like using a moment in time that is like really irreplaceable. Like, sometimes I think of ideas and I'm like, oh, well, it wouldn't look cool if I drew that. It'd be more cool if that was like an actual photo. But, so I have sometimes envy for photography, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, obviously music, but, music is its own beast of all of these hurdles to get over and all these I don't know, like musicianship plays into it, and you have to know how to write a good song, and it's like more of a beast to tackle with expression, which I kind of like, but at the same time, I think if I was only stuck to do that, I think I'd be a little miserable. And I
Yeah.
think vice versa, if I was stuck to only be doing visual art, I think I'd be a little miserable as well. Like I think it's doing both is what makes it really fulfilling because it's like kind of just these you get these two things to speak to each other and they kind of fill in the gaps. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Are there any specific artists that inspired your drawing style or just inspired you in general?
Um I mean, yeah, there was there was some visual artists at the time named Vune, which I got compared to a lot in the early stages because I mean at the beginning I think I was just kind of ripping her. But over time I was like, okay, I'm not really I want to find my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um but growing up I would do that. I would sort of sometimes like emulate a drawing style to understand it and then just try to like then be like, okay, how can I like morph this or make this my own? Like I remember I would do that with Jamie Hewlett of Gorillas. Like I would try to emulate the art style just so I knew how to do it, but I think after a while, I was inspired by more notably this artist David Rapinoe
Mm-hmm.
or Rap. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a very very talented um, like illustrator. I think there were, but more lately, I mean, I don't know. I think I don't really get inspired by visual artists too much anymore, especially not like I don't know. I guess like illustrators so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If I do find something cool, it's usually like some random drawing of just like there's no credits of like the artist. It'll be like something random, like on I find on Tumblr or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like sometimes it'll just be random things on like Twitter, even of just like random unnamed like sketches. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
or even sometimes I'm inspired by like people who can't who like say they can't draw and like they have this sort of amateur technique towards like line work,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like to me so beautiful because once you kind of learn how to draw, like you can never replicate what it's like to draw in the amateur like untrained brain. Like
Yeah.
you just can't. Some people who don't know how to draw and they just do it like free will or whatever, just like willy nilly. Like they sometimes do line work that looks so like I don't know, expressive and to me beautiful. And I'm just like, dude, I'm jealous of how you can do that because I like can't make it look like that, even though I try. Um, I mean, uh, I think Alex, 1 year for my birthday, had got me a book titled like I think I'm looking at it, like how to draw like a child or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
how, and it's basically about how to, I guess, retain or replicate or sort of talk about like how children approach this level of like not even thinking about the rules of making something look good, but doing it for the pure act of doing it and the expression and the result of how childlike it looks is just because of the pure act of them putting it all into just like I'm just doing because I just want to. Like,
Yeah.
this is just like fun for me. And like that is something that like I think needs to be regained, at least for myself, of like I'm just doing this because I want to do it instead of thinking about I need to do something that I'm just I'm gonna be happy with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh so but also literally like the way it looks, too, is aesthetically appealing to me at least, like sloppy line work and whatever. But I think, yeah, I don't know. My I haven't really been too inspired or tried not to really be inspired. I guess like
Mm-hmm.
the who I have been inspired has been very sparse and very broad. So I just kind of try to look inward. I guess like I can't even remember his name. I think it's Yoshitomo. Uh, well, Yoshitomo Nara, but there's another one, Amana. I can't remember, but there's another Japanese artist who I respect his style, but yeah.
Is there like a specific person that the girl in your work is based off of?
Um, this the girl is not based off of anyone or wasn't based off of anyone
Mm-hmm.
in creation. I think it was a sort of subconscious culmination of an idea that felt like it carried it was sort of like an idea of a type of person that was supposed to represent like a lot of like hope and weight and yearning, um, and all those emotions, and it was sort of meant to represent that. I think there was like light, sort of like early 2000s, you know I think a lot of like early 2000s movies growing up kind of
Mm-hmm.
always had this, you know, female character that was sort of like so, I don't know, like held on such a high pedestal for like maybe the male protagonist or something, or like even like in all media, like I think in the early 2000s, like even video games, movies, like shows, like even like anime and shit like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like it was just kind of like this more broad like representation of like kind of, I guess, what kids in the early 2000s were being shown of like, okay, like in a lot of media there's like this female character who holds all this like, I guess, I don't know, she's like the goal or like the love interest, or like you got to save her or whatever, or like blah
Mm-hmm.
blah 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 blah, or like she just hold you yearn for her, whatever. It's just like obviously that's always like this kind of narrative,
Yeah.
and I think that was she was kind of like a culmination of like that being, of that thing, and like that always being shown to you as a kid. So it was just kind of like this like representation for all these like sort of somber, yearnful, emotions, but wasn't based off of like anyone in particular necessarily. I think if anything, I just saw myself more in her than I was seeing anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah.
So she's also often chained to something like a jumble of objects or something like that. Does it also have to do with her being inspired by like 2000s video games and so on?
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's not so much video games or anything. It's just kind of all media. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
chain thing doesn't really follow. I'm not really thinking of that. I think there's. I think the way I've always thought of like drawing this girl and representing her with Julie and stuff like that is she's supposed to be this catalyst for all these emotions and stuff like that. But I always thought I've always had this vague like narrative idea that I've been attracted to that I've possibly been relying on too much is sort of like maybe a very dainty looking person, like a very soft looking person next
Mm-hmm.
to, sort of like a very like monstrosity looking or just very like aggressive or intense or, just like kind of like the juxtaposition, I guess, of these two things and have and like represent a sort of like bond between the two. I think like it's sort of the idea of like there's like I don't know like a giant monster who like really cares for this like princess or what I don't know, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like that idea of like these two polar opposites of type of people, but they are sort of like you can tell that there's this bond between the two. Um, so uh, I guess I try to do that, and I guess the chain thing is supposed to be this like more so like through line
Mm-hmm.
between that being like I think with the inanimate objects they're meant to be more so a a sort of like personification of like heavy and ugly and monstrous like weighted emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and so the chain to kind of represent like you're carrying that with you like you're bonded to it,
Yeah.
but you are also like pulling it along like you're bound to this thing, and maybe you kind of have like a like love hate relationship with it almost of like you know I don't know, you don't want to be in it but yeah you're bonded to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I always try to represent like this big personification of like sometimes industrial metal machinery or monstrous machinery to sort of be like almost like this protectorate of this girl or just like something she's bonded to.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of that connection, I guess, is like I'm always trying to think of ways to represent that better. But I've always been into that idea. I
Yeah.
guess just like that position is interesting to me. So
And then also nukes are another kind of recurring motive in your work. Is there like specific reasoning for that or
say again.
nukes, like
Oh,
missiles?
news. I think for a while I've been into just I think it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think like the juxtaposition of sort of very destructive, like industrial, like just sterile, um, like weapons of mass destruction, like machinery for mass destruction. It's meant to be a devastating instrument, but kind of like repurposing it or kind of giving this connotation that it's like sort of something emotionally, I guess, just like bonding, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
like something that you almost treat as like a pet or just like you're very is very endearing to the girl or whatever, like something that she has like a very, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm always interested in that idea, like very
Yeah.
like sterile, like machinery, sometimes used for like military or destruction or whatever, but kind of like personifying it or making it sort of this like affectionate kind of like thing, I guess. Like I don't know, kind of almost making it like a pet, I guess. I don't know. I think personifying like things has always been I think like a through line with like the art message and Julie. Like I think the reason why I kind of liked I mean, we chose Julie just for like the happenstance of like it seemed like the best name at the time, but
Yeah.
I think I like post rationalized it where you know, I guess you'd hear about like, how hurricanes always have like real people names and like even like meteors have like real people names and it's like that kind of for some reason gives this like emotional context, I guess, or like this
Mm-hmm.
impression of an emotional context when like this big destructive thing almost has like a person's name. It like almost it seems like a metaphor for something. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm always just interested in that idea. And I think the nuke thing kind of follows like that same appreciation where
Hmm.
it's like, you know, she's like holding a nuke as if it's like a teddy bear or something. It's
Yeah.
like, it's almost like you're putting all this like care and you're seeing this destructive thing through this like very like rose colored affectionate way. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something I'm trying to like represent better, I guess, or like find a way to make more interesting through using that tool. But yeah, that's something I focus on a lot.
Hmm. What in your opinion is like the artist's role in society, both as a musician and as an illustrator?
Artist role in society. Um, that is a good question. The artist role in society, I think, is very different. Um, well, actually, I don't know. Uh, Between musician and visual artist, I think that it can be very different, but I think
Hmm.
it ultimately should be just like I think it should be sort of for yourself, and I think that where it could become different is, I think like especially now, music is so accessible, but also like it's almost oversaturated. It's like everyone is making music, and it's more of like kind of a game sometimes where
Hmm.
people are doing it, solely just because like to be big or whatever, to get, opportunities or to to be like trendy or whatever. Um, and I don't think all music is like that. I mean, I think it's like the other side of pretentious. The other side of that is like very pretentious people like
Hmm.
trying to say like, oh, I'm making something like really deep and blah 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 blah. And, it's just kind of like whatever. Um, I don't know. I think ultimately it's all for yourself. Like
Yeah.
I think in society, I think it depends because I think the culture of what makes music interesting kind of changes. And I think right now we're like obviously in this accelerated period where, you know, things are coming back. Like old decades of music are coming back really fast. And
Hmm.
um, I think like uh, it's I don't know. I think people tend to feel like that everything has been done sometimes, and so you kind of need to unlock this new sort of perspective on like what is cool and interesting and blah blah blah. But it's not even about what's cool and what's interesting. I guess if we're talking about like music serving society, it's kind of pushing the envelope of like what is refreshing, right? And I think that it's interesting to find out what that is right now because it's not like I think avant-garde and whatever has been taken to a place already that is already like like already kind of conquered.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that new, you know, or at least it feels like there's nothing really that new that can come from avant-garde or don't know, like even just in music in general. It's like, oh, what is next that is interesting? So but I think like maybe that's easier to sort of think about, um, in the 90s or in the 80s or whatever. But I think right now, making music for yourself and making something that makes you feel emotionally fulfilled, whatever that might sound like, I think is what's cool and is what is pushing the envelope because it might sound really normal, but that might be what is refreshing. I think
Yeah.
like it does, the new thing doesn't have to be weird and avant-garde. I think it could just be like just something that's refreshing. So I think that just needs to be found through self-serving first. I think that needs to be found through, what fulfills you. Like if you can whatever music is like, you can tell is very like emotionally kind of just you're pouring your entire soul into it. That's what's cool. I
Hmm.
think that is sort of the purpose of art in both ways, in illustration and music. And I appreciate, it's not to say that I don't like music that doesn't do that, but I think that if you're talking about wanting to be an artist, truly, I think that's what sort of your job is in a way. I don't know. People have different goals, but that's sort of what I appreciate.
So then how would like what do you think would be a dream project for you in art?
A dream project, like what do you mean?
Kind of like how you would define success in your career almost.
Um, I guess like see, yeah, I don't really know what that would be yet either.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I'd have to find along the way. I mean, sometimes I have abstract ideas of like, oh, it'd be cool if I did something like this, but you know, I think I'm trying to sort of trust the process sometimes of like I think something that will feel really great will
Mm-hmm.
eventually come to me through the act of doing more and more and more. Um, I think like through experience or through inspiration or whatever. I mean, you know, it could come whenever you gain a really, you know, thought provoking idea or something that's like, oh, that it actually is interesting and that might like provoke me to sort of, you know, think about this or like this would feel like a very accurate expression of like pouring out my emotions, you know, like I think it's through trial and just not even trial and error, but just through doing it. Like I think that I could sort of draw or create art based off of the same feeling like 100 different times. And I think
Mm-hmm.
each time would be different because I mean, yeah, obviously try different mediums and blah 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 and whatever. But at the same time, I think it unlocks different avenues that you kind of bring out that thing inside of you. You know, like I could make a drawing about certain something, and then maybe I can make, you know, maybe someone can make a, you know, you can make a painting about the exact same feeling, but it's like done
Yeah.
in a different way. That's maybe more so based off of the act of like making it rather than what it looks like. Um, so I sort of think about those things, you know, and I feel like I've kind of gotten closer and closer each time. Is like I feel like a lot of the drawings in Julia are kind of about the same sort of narrative representation,
Mm-hmm.
and the subject changes a lot of what it's actually, you know, kind of coming from, like where it's coming from, but a lot of it is kind of the same or similar narrative. And through doing it over and over, I've learned how to like, I guess, make it more expressive the way I want it to be. I think at first it was very sort of vague and not really hitting how I wanted it to hit, but through doing it more and more and more, I've learned to be like, okay, like this actually is really fulfilling if I, you know, make it look like this and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just through doing that I'll find whatever I'd be, you know, fulfilled by, but it'll come with time.
And then I just have one last question about some of your artworks. They're on maps or like there's maps in the background.
Mhm. Um, so I think like I think it's kind of more so of a textural element, I guess. I guess I mean sometimes I remember a while ago I was looking at sort of I think that there's like very early Americana sort of art.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I saw like the art of like Manifest Destiny, and it was like this big sort of personification of like the U.S. as like this like I don't know big like woman who's like going westward and stuff like that. And it's kind of silly, but like you know again personification is like a big thing that I am attracted to. So um, I think like it was kind of especially art like that whereas kind of yeah like kind of um geological implementing was sort of interesting to me, you know. I think sometimes maps can offer the chance of like this personalization or it can just be a
Mm-hmm.
textural element too, you know. But it's like I did a drawing called Italy that where like the 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 boot looking shape of Italy is literally
Mm-hmm.
the boot of the girl. And I mean I thought it was just kind of stupid, but you know at the same time I was like, well, I don't know, I think that's just it's kind of what I felt like doing. It's kind of I guess a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time it does kind of maintain this um personification aspect in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but I just knew it when I did it that I was like, this is actually kind of fulfilling to me. Um, and it's just like a small drawing. I mean, it's not like I put that much weight in it or anything, but I think maps are like an interesting kind of untapped textural element, but also just tool for anything really. I mean, I think like maps are just kind of cool, you know, aesthetically pleasing, but I think they can be used for personification somehow. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so that was my last question.
cool,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, yeah, thank you so much for um, like asking me to do this. It's a great honor, Nina. I appreciate it a lot. Is this for like it's a project, right?
Yeah, so in my curriculum, you have to basically throughout 2 years create a lot of different artworks. And then for this one, I really wanted to look at your art because I've been like in past ones kind of exploring like I went to your guys' concert in Amsterdam. So there I took a
Mm.
lot of photos of like the performances. So I was focusing on like the poses and the emotions that they convey. And then I felt like your art really just played into that, especially as you're a member of Julie.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that a lot. That's like super flattering. So, I appreciate it. But yeah, again, like thank you so much for asking me to do this. It was super cool to be able to do that. And yeah, like I hope you get like a good grade on it or something. You
Thank
know, I
you.
hope I don't ruin it. But yeah, again, I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you
Yeah.
so much for like agreeing.
Of course,
And
of
yeah,
course, of course. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much.
yeah.
And hope take care with everything. I hope everything goes well with the project.
Thank you. You too. Have a nice day.
You too. All right. Bye bye.